This is exercise 5 for business law. Question 1, provide a fictitious example of someone fired with cause and someone fired without cause. Explain what happens in each situation. So, someone who is fired with cause means that the employee has gone against or breached their contract or have conducted an activity within bullying and discrimination, as well as harassment. So, for example, if you're working at a grocery store and you're caught stealing products, you can be terminated from your position with cause. This causes a lack of trust between employers and other employees and is therefore a reason for termination. If you are fired with cause, you are not entitled to any money or pay of any kind. However, on the other hand, you can also be fired without cause. So this means your employer must either give you a working notice with pay or a check. For example, you're working for a business, however, your employer believes that you're no longer helpful to the environment or they have found another candidate with better qualifications. They might fire you without cause. This means that you did not break your contract. You may not have done anything wrong and you may not have been involved in any bullying or discrimination, but you are no longer needed to work. Question 2, provide an example of discrimination based on a disability. Explain why it is a violation of the Ontario Human Rights Code and explain why this is a law in Ontario. So discrimination based on a disability is definitely a violation of human rights because employers must accommodate for disabilities when you're hired, providing a workplace which is free from bullying, discrimination, violence, and harassment. For example, if you were injured in an accident, you return to work, but you're told by your doctor that you must modify your activity. So you tell your employer, you give them a written doctor's note. However, your employee does not adhere to these modifications, and in return, you're fired because your employer does not believe you are able to complete this job. This is discrimination, and this law is put in place because everyone is entitled to be treated as equals and with respect, and to be in a work environment free from bullying, discrimination, harassment, and violence. Question 3, give an example of discrimination based upon ethnic origin. Explain why it is discrimination based upon ethnic origin and why we cannot discriminate based upon ethnic origin. So you are looking to rent an apartment and you are meeting with your landlords and you have a good credit score and a good income and there's no reason for them to not want to enter a contract with you. However, they've made it clear through comments and they have decided that they do not want to allow you to rent the apartment because they feel that due to your ethnic origins, you might do so and so based on their stereotypical ideations of your culture or your ethnicity. And they may not allow you to rent simply just due to your ethnicity. This is an example of discrimination based upon ethnic groups. This is not allowed because this violates human rights by preventing someone from renting a place to live due to something like their ethnicity that they cannot control. And ethnicity and ethnic origin does fall within a category of the Ontario Human Rights Code. So question 4, when an employee asks for your social insurance number before they offer you a job, which protected grounds of discrimination have they violated? And what is the question they ought to ask? And explain why this is the law in Ontario. So in Ontario, a SIN number should only be asked after a candidate has been hired. So by asking a candidate for their SIN number before hiring, this is a violation of human rights through discrimination, as your SIN number can be used to identify a number of things, such as your citizenship or your immigration status. So instead, your employer should be asking if you are legally able to work in Canada. This is the law because it is not legal to use someone's SIN number to check their status before hiring, as this could potentially cause the employer to act discriminatory towards the applicant and can also put the employer at risk by asking for their SIN number before the job's given. So if the employer receives the SIN number before hiring, continues the interviews, and does not end up hiring that individual, they can be faced with consequences for receiving that information prior to hiring or not hiring. Question 5, is it a violation of the Ontario Human Rights Code to not hire a person simply because they are a Trump supporter? Explain the law on this issue. So in Ontario, political beliefs is not a violation of the Human Rights Code to hire. Political beliefs are not included within the list of protected human rights, and therefore it is a question that can be asked. This can later turn into an issue, but does not violate Ontario human rights to hire or to not hire.